Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the strange disappearance of a woman called Echo Lloyd. Didn't actually happen that long ago, 2 years, 2020. Her family have been at the forefront of this. You know, her Kelsey, one of her daughters, has just been, they've all been trying to find out just what happened to her. She just vanished without a trace. And the circumstances surrounding it are just really, really strange. This case was suggested by Donald, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. And of course, if you do have any more, please do let me know. Echo Michelle Lloyd was born on the 23rd of May in 1972 in Harrison, Ford, Missouri. She actually was a lifelong resident of Pleasant Hill. Echo graduated from Pleasant Hill High School and she went on to have 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. She was just described as such a loving, wonderful person. And those closest to her, like her family, her friends, you know, all of the people surrounding her meant the absolute most to her. You know, she revolved around her family and her friends, and she was a very social woman. She also had 3 grandchildren at the time that she went missing, one of which I believe, I may be wrong with the age slightly, but I think I read that like he was like a month old, so you know, very young. It was very strange that she left with her family. Well, left, I can't say that she left because we don't know, but it's just very strange that she vanished and she had all this family and these friends and all of this support. So a lot of people do think that foul play was obviously involved as a result of that. Echo moved to Edwards in Missouri in the early 2019, and well, we'll get more into the reasons behind that, but she ended up living alone. But she, you know, she was a very free spirit. She was a genuinely caring person. If she found a stray animal, she would bring it in and take care of it, and just that's the kind of person she was. And you know, I myself absolutely love animals. If I ever find any strays, I do the same. So you know, just such a genuinely lovely woman. When she reached the age of 47, which was when she was moving house and things, she decided that she was going to change her life. She'd recently separated from her husband and she wanted a fresh start. And a big part of that was this new house that she bought. It was beautiful. It was on these 10 acres of land behind, well, there was more land behind her. I believe there was like 13,000 acres of forest behind her. Apparently, I have seen a few comments and stuff looking into this case that not a lot of people know, because this area's, you know, it's got lovely land. It seems lovely on the outside. It's got this river running through it, or something like that, a lake, something like that anyway. And it seems like a really nice place to be, and a lot of people go and retire there and things like that, but then they end up finding themselves surrounded. Apparently this town has a lot of drugs involved in it, and a lot of people are involved in drugs around there, and not a lot of people actually know that when they go to move there, and then they move in and then they like, oh god, like there's just drugs everywhere. So that's what I've read anyway. I can't comment on it. I do not live there. It's just what I've read on other people's videos, on comments on the articles of locals, what the comments that they have made. So like I said, it's not what I've said, it's just what other people have said who actually are from my area. But going back to Echo, she loved this house. She really wanted to renovate it and make it just such a nice home for her to live in. She had like this shed outside where she would do projects and things. She was very handsy and would do projects to try and help make her house more homely and, you know, make it better. It was a river it's just come to me. It is a river. It's called the Truman River that is close by to the house. And, you know, she loved being outdoorsy, going out in the forest. She had a hobby of going mushroom hunting. She just loved all that, nature and this river and everything else. So it was just a lovely place for her to be, like to have her home and to have all the land and to have the outdoors and just all the space. It was a very exciting sort of time for her. She was having work done on the renovations, work done on the house, like renovations and things like that. And then suddenly, on Mother's Day of 2020, she simply vanishes. So, on the 9th of May, Kelsey, one of Echo's daughters, spoke to her and everything seemed fine. Now, say seemed fine, there's a lot of, we will get into it in a little bit, but a lot of stuff around the neighbour that's very questionable, okay? But Kelsey knew of this, and on that day that she spoke to her, everything was fine, or seemed fine. Mum didn't have any sort of qualms or worries or anything like that. So that is why I say that. But like I said, we will jump more into that a little bit further down the story. The next day was the 10th, which was Mother's Day, and Kelsey hadn't really heard from her mum all day. She decided to drive down and drop off, well, give her this plant, like a flower, potted flower, as her Mother's Day gift and a card. And she goes down there. She got there around 3:30 to 4 o'clock, and her mum's car wasn't in the driveway. So obviously she's thinking she's just nips out. So she like leaves the card and the flowers on the doorstep, and she writes a little note on it on the back saying like, ring me when you get in, sort of thing. So off she goes. What else can she do? Her mum's not in. So she leaves it there and she goes back home. And she's expecting that phone call to come from Echo, but it never does. Now, she didn't worry too much about it initially. She just figured that she'd call her in the morning and they would talk then, just like would. So the next morning came, she tried to call her mum and no answer. She tried to call her on the landline too, still no answer. Now, there's a massive thing here with Echo's area. The signal in it was terrible apparently. Even Echo had 2 mobile phones, because one would get signal in one area and one would get it in another. This is what I've read, and there was like a certain area like on the roof where you could get signal, so it was very spotty there. It was very hard to get signal, but again, she had the landline, she tried that, and there was just no answer on anything. She ends up calling, like getting in touch with one of the neighbours, who basically says that they haven't seen her, and when they see her they'll tell her to call Kelsey. So she's like, okay then. And then throughout the week, she continuously tries to call her mum and does not get a response. So she's getting worried. She's wondering what on earth's going on. She rings the neighbour again. The neighbour says the same thing. And she's like, no, I'm not keep waiting for you to see her to tell her to ring me. I'm going to go and look for her and check it out myself. So this is what she does. It's been 5 days of no contact at this point. We're now on the 15th of May. And Kelsey decides that she's going to drive down to her mother's to find out what's going on herself. So she does that. She gets there about 10:30ish in the morning, and it's early, so she's thinking, you know, when she gets to the door and nobody answers, maybe she's just asleep. So she's like banging on the windows, banging on the doors, shouting her mom, and there's just nothing. But at this point, her car was in the driveway. That's something I just should have mentioned first. It was in the driveway, so she's thinking, well, she's home, her car's here. The doors were all locked, she must just be inside. But she just didn't answer any attempts at trying to contact her inside the house. Something she did think was odd was that as she was looking around, the potted plant that she had given to her mother for Mother's Day was still outside, but it wasn't in the position she left it in. It had been moved. So she felt that was weird, because, I mean, I did too a little bit, because you get a present and you get a gift and you it's left outside your door, you come home and you think, oh wow, and you take it inside. That's generally what would happen. Maybe she wanted that plant to be outside. I don't know whether it was an indoor plant or an outdoor plant. You know, I don't know. She could have thought, oh, that's beautiful, I'll put it on the porch over there. I don't know. But the card was missing, so that had been taken in. But the potted plant was just sort of in a different location. So I mentioned that Echo had a shed earlier. It was where she did all her arts and crafts and things like that. She was a very arty person and would try and do her home renovations in there wherever she could. So, you know, she goes to that thinking maybe she's just busily working on that and that is why she can't hear her or something like that. But she goes in there and nothing's been touched for days, which again struck Kelsey as odd, because her mum was in there quite a lot, tinkering away and doing all these little bits and things, and nothing had been touched. Now again, you could just think, oh well, maybe she couldn't be bothered, she hadn't been in there, but it just worried her slightly. So next she goes to his neighbour, and this neighbour is again the neighbour that we will talk about, like the circumstances surrounding him. But basically she knows that this neighbour has a key to her house, so she goes to the neighbour and says, I want the key to my mum's house, I want to check that she's okay, not heard from her for days, I'm worried. And this neighbour basically says, oh, I don't have the keys anymore. She wanted them back. She wanted them back on either the 9th or the 10th. They didn't know which day it was. And she took them because she wanted to be alone. So at this point, she's thinking, well, you know, I could use them to get in the house. What am I going to do? So she goes back to the house and she has a look around again. She finds this window that is sort of slightly open. Well, quite a bit open, I think. And she decides that she's going to sort of break in through there. So that's what she does. She goes inside and she immediately thinks that there's something wrong in the house because Echo was a very tidy, neat person, very organised. She, well, put it this way, she had work being done, I think, on the living room at the time, like construction work. And anyone who's had construction work knows that it's really dusty and just really dirty. And no matter how much you clean it up while it's still ongoing, it's there again, probably like half an hour later. So there's just not much point to it until it's finished, really. So she had this area that was really dirty and dusty because they were doing the work on it. But even that area was still organised and neat because despite not being able to clean it, because it would just come back, it was a bit pointless, she still kept everything in order, if you know what I mean. So she goes inside, bearing that in mind, and there's like piles of trash everywhere. She goes in all the rooms, there's just piles of trash. There's food left out on the side that's been rotting. You know, it's rotten at that point. And that was not like her mum at all, because she was just such a tidy person. She would have never ever left the house like that. Even if she was going out, she wouldn't have left trash everywhere and food on the side to go rotten. You know, if she went out and then, I don't know, something horrible happened to her and she didn't get the chance to clean up, that's not what she would have done. So she knew something was wrong straight away. She said it was as if somebody else had been living in the house, which who knows at this point. She goes to her mum's room. She finds that there is the card that she gave her for Mother's Day opened up on the dresser. She finds her cigarettes. Now, Echo was a smoker, and those cigarettes went everywhere with her. And apparently, the brand of the cigarettes wasn't even the one that Echo normally had. I can't remember which brands were which. She normally smoked like this quite popular brand of fags, and the brand that was on the dresser wasn't even hers. The lighter was apparently, but the brand wasn't. Now, that could just be that they didn't have the fags in and she just had to get some different ones. But apparently the brand that she smoked being very popular, and people do find it hard to believe that she couldn't actually get hold of them. So were those cigarettes even hers? Who knows? She also found her purse, which once more went everywhere with her. Literally, if Echo went to go and have a fag outside, the purse went with her. That is what her daughter said. So it was just very strange for her to not be there, the house to be in a mess, and all of these important things that she always took with her to be there without her. Do you know what I mean? And then when she looked inside of the purse, she found cash, IDs, you know, everything that she may have needed to go out somewhere were all in there. Some things that she could not find throughout the house were her phone. Well, like I said, I've read that she had two, so I'm guessing both of the phones were not there. Her car keys, her house keys, and it was odd because her car was in the driveway and her house was locked up. So, you know, if she's gone out and took her car keys, why is she not in a car? It's weird. She carried on looking around the house and she found some medications were missing. I believe she took not a lot of medications, but a few different ones. And sort of maybe, I think it might have been an antidepressant that she was taking, that she took every day. That medication was the one that was missing. She also used to carry a revolver around, and that was also found to be missing. Kelsey did find this receipt from Walmart that was marked on the 10th of May and had been signed by her mother, so that makes you think that she went to Walmart that day, and, you know, she must have gotten home after that, because why would the receipt then be in her house, I guess? So Kelsey really did believe that, you know, maybe she was at Walmart when Kelsey came to drop her stuff off. She dropped it off. Echo came home, but then what happened to after that is a mystery. Nobody knows. So obviously, really worried about all this, she calls in the police for like a welfare check to find out what on earth is going on. Takes the police 30 minutes to get to where she is because it's a very rural area, like I already stated. And that is when eventually Kelsey filed a missing persons report. Right, so now here is something that is very interesting, because going back to the neighbour, Basically, right, Kelsey, when Echo first got this house, Kelsey lived with her for a little time. And she said that this neighbour came around and introduced himself. And he did it in a very weird way. Like, he just appeared out of the forest and was just like, hi, I'm such about it. I do know his name. I am not going to put it in because, I don't know, it's all not speculation, but allegedly and stuff like that. It's all alleged. That's probably not a word, but you know what I mean. So I'm not going to put his name in this video, but you know, it is out there. You can find who this person is. I just don't want to put any names in it apart from obviously Echo, and obviously you already know her daughter. But yeah, anyway, he began to keep showing up, popping up out of the woods, was always on a property. Just, it seemed like he didn't have any boundaries. He would try and make himself be helpful, like, or at least, you know, try and help them, look like he was trying to help them. And both of them thought he was weird because he eventually would get to the point where he just had no boundaries whatsoever, and if the house was open, he would just open the door and let himself in. Like, if it was unlocked, he would just walk in. I mean, who does that? She felt like she didn't have any privacy. And Kelsey did eventually move out, you know, and went to live wherever she went to live. But that left her mum then, who would start locking the doors, locking the windows, shutting the blinds, because she just felt like he was there all the time and she had no privacy from him whatsoever. I did also see that Kelsey said that she actually had a word with him on one occasion about boundaries and his lack thereof. But that didn't seem to make a difference because he just carried on doing what he was doing. Now, we get to 2 weeks before she actually vanished, and Echo goes round to her daughters, and she's like, she tells her that this neighbour has taken over everything, which came as a real shock to Kelsey, as you can imagine. Like, he had her house keys, which is how she knew he had the house keys. He had the keys to her car. He had access to all her money. He was basically living in a house kind of thing. He took over a household. She felt like he was taking over her life and she didn't want it. So there's been a lot of speculation around this. Like, how does that happen? How does somebody hand over their house keys, their money? And apparently she couldn't like spend money without him letting her do it. But it's her money. So you're thinking, what on earth? But if you think about sort of being in a manipulative relationship, these two apparently were not in a relationship according to Kelsey. Apparently they were quite close, more on his part than hers. I truly believe that maybe he had deep feelings for her and she didn't reciprocate them, which again is a very dangerous thing, can be a dangerous situation to be in, because you know, he wants her but she doesn't want him, sort of thing. So Kelsey did ask her mum on numerous occasions as to whether this was like a relationship, and she totally said like no. So you can imagine someone's been there, always hanging around, and Echo wasn't a very confrontational person, so she didn't want to tell him to go get lost. And she was just like this nice woman, and she wanted to make friends, so maybe he took advantage of that and ended up manipulating her into giving him all this stuff and giving him access to everything. It's very strange, but sadly it happens. People get manipulated and I don't know, they do things that you wouldn't normally do. Anyway, Kelsey asked her mum to stay with her while they figured everything out, you know, about him. But she was a very, what's the word? Independent. She was a very independent woman. She wanted to stand on her own 2 feet. She wanted to sort this out herself. So she basically said that she wasn't going to stay the night, but, you know, she was going to sort it out. And I mean, if anything ever happened, like I said, she did have her revolver for defense. It was in the house, I believe. So she could protect herself if anything sinister happened or anything like that. So I guess with all that in mind and wanting to sort it out herself, you know, she ended up going back home. She then rang Kelsey every night after that and updated her on things that were happening, things that he was doing. And then, like I said, that last phone call, I don't believe she actually mentioned him. So at least in Kelsey's eyes, maybe he wasn't being as bad that day. I don't actually know. But I also did read that at the time he was living with his grandfather, they were neighbours to Echo. But it was his grandfather's house, not his. So he was actually living with his grandfather. Now, there's a lot of thingy around the grandfather too, because his grandfather ended up somehow on the floor for 3 days, whilst this person was supposed to be living in the house at the time, with a broken back. His back was literally snapped in half, and he lay on that floor for 3 days without his grandson ever seeking medical attention, who was supposed to be living there at the time. He was actually found by one of the neighbours, and the neighbour rang the ambulance, and sadly, the next day he passed away. So yeah. Then I also read that this neighbour stayed in the house whilst after his grandfather passed away, and his uncle actually had to basically go to the courts to get him removed from the house because he just wouldn't leave after that. And this was all like, I believe this was either within that 2 weeks that she sort of before she went missing, or as she went missing, kind of thing. It's all just very, very weird. Like, this guy's hanging around Echo, he's there all the time, and then he's got her keys because he manipulated them out of her, and then suddenly she asks for them back and he just gives them her. I found that really weird. Like, if he was the kind of person who was manipulating her, why did he give them back to her? Just questions in my mind that I just found very strange about this case. Anyway, the investigation began. Kelsey obviously told them all of this, and they didn't find it too alarming. Now, initially, the police work on this case is very questionable. Apparently, according to Kelsey, they didn't treat the house like a crime scene. They walked around it, you know, did very little investigating, really, just kind of sat on it. And bearing in mind, this police station has very little staff. They are very understaffed at the time. They were really struggling, but they knew that. And if they knew that they couldn't do this case properly or look into this case properly, then they should have handed it off to somebody who could. They did eventually hand it off, but that took months, which is quite frustrating because obviously your family member is missing. You want to get everything and get everyone to jump on it straight away. And if they don't have the manpower to do that, then they should have passed it on sooner, but they didn't. It was the Benton County Sheriff's Office that was initially called to the scene. But, you know, although they took the case seriously because she just vanished without a trace, I don't know, there was just very little policing done on it by the sounds of it. There was also no investigation done into the grandfather's death, which I found really strange. Like, I don't know, he could have fallen out of bed, I guess, and broke his back. But then to be left on the floor for 3 days when your grandson literally lives in the same house as you, surely there's something to be looked into there. That's just my opinion, of course, though. It was the 11th when the first search really began for Echo. They started looking around her property and things like that. As I've said, she had like 10 acres of land. Behind her was 13,000 acres of forests, wood. There was the lake area close by his property. You know, it was just a vast area. So they began looking through all that, I believe. The next day they were going to bring in dogs, but they decided not to because they decided that she didn't even go missing. There was no evidence to prove that she went missing from her home. I don't know. And apparently that 13,000 acres behind the house wasn't even initially searched, so they probably just did her property line and then decided that she didn't even go missing from there, which, I don't know, how do they know that at this point? Now, I also did see, as they were looking into the investigation, they found CCTV of Echo, the last sort of footage of her, right? She was seen at this dollar store meeting these people, and that has never been released to the family, nor has it been released to the public, which is very strange because normally the family and things get to see it. Nobody even knows what Echo was wearing on the last day that she was seen and when she went missing. Nobody knows who these people are, what she was doing with them. It's just never been released. Literally nothing. They began seeking the public's help, asking people to come forward, you know, for any information of her, but there was just no leads in this case, and they didn't even know where to really look from her. Again, they didn't think she went missing from the house. If she didn't go missing from the house, then where on earth did she go missing from? That dollar store that she was last seen at? Who actually knows? After a couple of months, the sheriff's department did hand the case off to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, which, again, they seemed to be just sitting on this case. It's been 2 years now. There's very little information out there into their investigation, into any suspects. I watched a video from, she's actually called Jill the Private Investigator, I believe, and she actually stated that the police, some member of the police that she actually spoke to, or something along those lines, said that they do have a prime suspect, but that's news to everyone else because they've never released that they even have a prime suspect in this case. So this is how little information is out there, and I know sometimes the police do not release everything, you know, they don't want to impede their case, they don't release anything, but normally they release, like, if they've got people in mind, like a suspect or something, but there's just nothing. I did also read that Kelsey allegedly found in this guy's house one of Echo's car keys, and maybe, I think it was, no, not a car, yeah, I think it might have been a car keys, the ones in that house keys, I don't think. And on his driveway was one of her cell phones, and apparently when she went to pick it up, he grabbed it and shouted at her and said, "Echo gave me that." I don't know, that's just sort of, at this point, what Kelsey has stated. Like I said, the police just are sitting on everything and haven't released anything anyway. But that's it. It's devastating. This family have lost a person in their life, a very important person who was obsessed with family, friends, who had grandchildren, one of which was very young at the time, and she just vanished. She wouldn't have left her family behind. She just wouldn't have, according to her family. So it was very out of character for her. She's just vanished off the face of the earth. Nobody has a clue what's happened to her. It's been 2 years now. We really need to get this case shared and more in the public eye, because from what I can see, it's not actually being shared that much. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but there's not a lot of coverage from what I could find, which is really sad. And obviously we just want to bring more awareness to Echo's case, just to share a story, hoping that it will generate more leads, hoping that more information will come to light. Maybe somebody saw something that they didn't realise that they actually knew. Just anything really. But her family is vowed to keep on fighting. They will not give up on looking for Echo, and rightly so.
Keep searching for her, keep talking about her, keep spreading her word, keep calling the cops, keep letting them know that we are not going to stop until she's home. We love and appreciate everybody. Happy holidays.
Echo was 47 years old when she went missing and is described as having brown hair, brown eyes. She also has the following tattoos. The phrase "let it be" with birds on her right forearm, a band with the names Kelsey, Casey, Caitlin and Kyle on her right wrist, all of her children, a blue survivor ribbon on her wrist, a rose on her ankle, and a butterfly on the right side of her chest. Now please, if anyone has any information, if you've seen somebody with those tattoos and didn't realise that it was her, literally anything, please come forward, because her family are desperately seeking answers. They have Facebook pages out there. They're just at the forefront of it all, trying to get anything. They update it regular, so go and check that out if you want. There's a GoFundMe page, I believe, as well. Just please, if you know anything, contact somebody, authorities, anyone. This family are so desperate, and Echo is just gone. Nobody knows what happened to her. She's still missing to this day. Her case remains unsolved, and that is that. Personally, I'm not going to put too many personal opinions in this, because I don't know, okay? To me, the neighbour seems very odd, but I'm not going to accuse anyone, and I'm not going to, because it's not my place. Just looking into it though, I'd like to know what your opinions are, because this person seems very manipulative to be able to get her to hand over all these things when she's not even in a relationship with him. And then she suddenly vanishes and he stops going round. He doesn't care anymore. It's just weird, right? I think it's weird. That's my opinion. I'd like to know what your opinion is on it. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway, that's all I have today on the case of Echo Lloyd. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.